Alrighty, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to the Journeyman Sports Podcast. This is episode 28. Today, going to be predicting the quarterback carousel of the 2023 offseason. Now, those of you who might not exactly be familiar with that term, basically just going to be predicting where I think the top quarterbacks are going to be signing or potentially staying this offseason. So, not going to waste your guys' time. Go ahead and get right into it. And the biggest name that is going to hit the open market is going to be Tom Brady. Coming off of a not spectacular season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Didn't do anything to really blow you away, but at the end of the day, this is still Tom Brady. You know what you're getting with him. And he does a lot outside of on the field. The ticket sales, jersey sales, all the stuff that a franchise is looking at. And he's coming off of a not bad year. He had 4,694 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 picks, was sacked 22 times. So we know Tom Brady's 45. He's coming off of an underwhelming year with the Buccaneers. We all know that. There's been several teams linked to Tom Brady. We've heard going back to Tampa, heard Miami, San Francisco, the Raiders, heard lots of teams. Tennessee is another one. And to me, I think Tom Brady is going to end up with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. Number one, we've heard a lot that was originally where Tom Brady might have ended up anyways. We know now that when he was on the shop, I believe with LeBron James, he said something if you're going to pick that guy, well, more vulgar word there, but you're going to pick that guy over me. And turned out that was the Raiders and Derek Carr. So I think now that Josh McDaniels is there, there's a lot more incentive for Brady to go there. We know he's had his eye on Las Vegas for a while now, and they have a pretty loaded offense. Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, if they can bring him back, Hunter Renfrow. What's the tight end's name? Darren Waller. They've got lots of weapons, and he's going to be familiar with the system with Josh McDaniels. I think this is the best fit for Brady. I'm guessing it'll be no more than a 2-year deal, somewhere of 30-ish a year. I really think this is the best spot for Brady. We know that he's going into an uber competitive division, but Tom Brady is oftentimes the best when the cards are down. He's doubted. So I think the Raiders, that's my pick for where Tom Brady is going to end up. Next up is a guy who's been linked to Tom Brady for a while in his career, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G, this was a very eventful previous offseason for Garoppolo. We know everything that happened with the 49ers where they weren't even having him practice with the team. Then Trey Lance gets hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, plays in 11 games, throws for 2,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 4 picks. And Jimmy G's a good quarterback. We know what he can do. We saw that he got San Francisco to a Super Bowl. And we know that Jimmy G's out of San Francisco. They've got Brock Purdy. They've got Trey Lance. They've got their 2 quarterbacks that they want, and they want to keep building off of. So where does this leave Jimmy G? Jimmy G's a solid game manager. In my opinion, he's an underrated quarterback. He's a guy a lot of teams I think would really love to have. Seems to be beloved by the 49ers locker room. He's been in the big game. He's gotten a team there. And I think a team that needs some stability at quarterback is the New York Jets. And that is exactly where I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to end up. I think the Jets have had a lot of issues at quarterback. Mike White, Joe Flacco, obviously Zach Wilson sticks out like a sore thumb with them. The Jets need a guy who's going to come in, play well, do his job. Jimmy G is somewhat familiar with Robert Saleh. He's been in the building with him. I think Jimmy G is exactly what this team needs, a 1 or 2 year bridge quarterback. Try and see if you can fix Zach Wilson, maybe see what you can get in the trade market for him, and then reevaluate what you have going on at quarterback as a whole. I think this would be a perfect fit for Jimmy G. They've got a championship defense. They've got weapons on offense, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, CJ Uzama. They've got weapons on this team. They just need a guy to get them the ball. And I think that's exactly what Jimmy G can do for this team. So that leads us to our next player, Derek Carr. No, Derek Carr is done with the Raiders now. I think that's another reason why they would bring in Brady. But Derek Carr is an interesting situation. He had a pretty lackluster year. Pull up his stats real quick. But Derek Carr was nothing special this year with the Raiders. And, we ultimately saw him get benched. We know a large part of that was because if he got hurt, he's locked into $30 million. Played in 15 games, 3,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 14 picks, which is up towards the top of the league. And to me, I think Derek Carr has a number of potential landing spots. The Rams, see what happens. We'll get to Aaron Rodgers later in this video. That's another potential option. The Falcons. I've heard the Dolphins get thrown in there some. But to me, I think the best place for Derek Carr to land at is going to be Tampa Bay. Funny enough, him and Tom Brady will actually sort of end up just switching spots. But I think Carr will go into a Tampa team that is still solid. They're going to get a little younger at quarterback. I'm sure Derek Carr will not be taking a lot of money wherever he goes compared to what he was getting paid with the Raiders. I think Derek Carr is still a good quarterback. I think he's still got years left on him. I think he can still compete at a high level. I think he can get this team to the playoffs in a division that is nothing special as of right now. A year or two from now, I could see the NFC South being really good, but as of right now, it's open season. The Panthers aren't too great. They've got a good future. The Saints have an interesting situation. And then the Falcons are not anything special either. They've shown flashes, but this is still an open division unless something crazy were to happen this offseason. So I think Derek Carr going to Tampa, he's going to inherit good weapons, a good offensive line, a solid offensive line, good weapons, a good defense. And I think they're really going to see how good of a coach Todd Bowles is. They're going to be bringing in a new offensive system anyways, as we've seen. They fired Brian Leftwich and several other offensive minds on their staff. So I think Derek Carr could be another bridge quarterback like Jimmy G. Give Tampa Bay a year or two of still being competitive without having to commit to a young quarterback. And they can always reevaluate a free agency or two from now, see where the market is on different quarterbacks and go from there. So next up, we have current Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. And, Ryan Tannehill, he's been a solid quarterback the whole time he's been in Tennessee. He's done nothing outstanding, so to say. He's done nothing poor either. Played in 12 games this year, had 2,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 picks. And I think Ryan Tannehill is a similar type of quarterback to Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a game manager. He's good in the play action. He's going to get the ball to his playmakers. And he's just solid. I think Ryan Tannehill is a solid quarterback. Being a Jags fan, living in Indy and watching the Colts a lot, I've seen what he can do. No, obviously he had the best running back in the league for a while now. Derrick Henry, they've had a good system built around that. But he's never really thrown to any crazy weapons. And I think Ryan Tannehill approaching, getting north of 34 and 35, he's going to be taking less and less money, and I think he's slowly going to find himself working back to being a backup, which is not a bad thing. I think a lot of teams, they had Ryan Tannehill as their backup, they'd be really happy. But there's going to be some teams that see Ryan Tannehill as a starter. I know he could stay with Tennessee. Me personally, I see Ryan Tannehill ending up on the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons, I don't really know exactly what the Marcus Mariota situation looks like anymore. We know that he kind of crapped out on them early at the end of last year, just kind of left the building when they started Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder did not show me anything personally to really make me believe that he is the franchise guy. He's the answer to quarterback there. And that's a little concerning, I think. I mean, you obviously only spent a third-round pick on him, so you're not locked into him. But I think you bring in a guy like Ryan Tannehill who can be a mentor, who can show Desmond Ridder the ropes. And there are some weapons in Atlanta. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Cordero Patterson. Algier is another running back who's on the up-and-coming now. And like I just said with Derek Carr in Tampa Bay, there's plenty of open competition in this division. There is no favorite really as of right now. I mean, obviously we'll see exactly how the offseason unfolds, but to me, there's no clear-cut favorite in this division. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams that realize, all we have to do to get to the playoffs is just win this division, which, as we saw last year, it only could take 8 wins. So the Falcons, I think, get a good chance there to go get Ryan Tannehill and to keep him playing as a starter. He's got a good chance to come in with really no expectations and see just exactly what he can do. And I think that's a good opportunity. And I think Tennessee ultimately moves on from Ryan Tannehill, and that sort of saga is over. I don't know, get a little bit later to what I think Tennessee might do, but they're going to be left with an interesting situation. And that moves us to our next quarterback, Baker Mayfield, who in a typical Baker way has had a really crazy season. We know it was not very good in Carolina, and he played a lot better down the stretch with the Rams. I will admit that. Baker Mayfield did turn it around a little bit. Don't have, for some reason, in 4 games, he threw for 850 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He got sacked 17 times. I don't know if that sounds like a lot in 4 games. But the Rams were a mess this year. Long story short, when he got moved, well, he didn't get moved there. When he got cut by the Panthers, signed with the Rams, there was really no expectations. Then he comes in, wins that crazy game after being there for 2 days against the Raiders, I believe. And it started a positive trajectory for him to finish the year. And that's what the Rams, I think, wanted to see. We know the Rams still have Stafford. I've heard a lot coming out about him that he might even look at retiring. And I think Baker, at this point in his career, has to realize you're not a franchise quarterback. You maybe have the potential to be, but at this current spot, you're not. Which is not like it takes a certain type of person to be that. I still think Baker has potential. I think he's going to stay in the league as a backup potentially. Obviously, the ego is still there, but I think that ego got put on mute when he was with the Rams, and that was a positive sign for his future in the NFL. And I think he's going to stay with the Rams, with there being a lot of uncertainty with Matthew Stafford. I think Baker still gives you a chance if Matthew Stafford does retire or go down to be competitive once they get healthy again. We know how well that team can play, and we just have to see them stay healthy again. McVay is staying. We know how good of a coach he is. We know what this offense can do with Cooper Kupp. They've got some holes to patch up, and they have no real draft picks to do it. But I think Baker is a good signing for the Rams. Depending on the money, it's really, there's no downside to it as I see it. I think that would be a good move for the future for the Rams, just to keep, he's a good stopgap to say. And then we've got the 2 big names now of the free agent class, with Lamar Jackson being potentially one of the biggest quarterbacks to hit the, so to say, open market. We'll have to see exactly what happens with Lamar, but we know this year, played in 12 games, 2,200 yards in the air, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks, added on 764 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. So, Lamar was on a good pace this year. He was playing well, and I really liked what I saw from Lamar again this year, especially at the beginning. Started off hot. And ultimately, I don't think the Ravens are going to let go of him. I think Lamar Jackson is going to get franchise tagged by the Ravens. I don't think they can let him hit the open market. I just don't. I think the way that it sounds, everyone still wants him to be there. Have not heard much from Lamar himself. Obviously, the biggest sort of thing is you saw how much they struggled when Lamar wasn't playing, which you expect to happen. But they did see that Tyler Huntley can play at a, starting level in the NFL. So that's another sort of question mark. But ultimately, I don't see Lamar leaving Baltimore. I think if he does, the teams to watch would be the Jets would be number one on that list for me. Tennessee would be another one to watch. I think those would be the two biggest markets for Lamar Jackson. But ultimately, I think the Ravens will end up franchise tagging him and he will stay for another year in Baltimore. And we'll see how the contract situation continues to unfold. Which somehow over the past 2 years, they still have not been able to agree to terms. So see what happens there. Then our last quarterback on the list is Aaron Rodgers, who heard recently on the Pat McAfee show, if he does come back to Green Bay, it would be on some sort of pay cut. I think that is a smart move by him. Open up some other avenues to bring in some better players if he is going to stay there. I think Aaron Rodgers I don't think he's going to retire this season. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to play. And I think he's going to continue to play at a high level. Aaron Rodgers, he's the back-to-back MVP. It'll change this year. Obviously, I think we'll talk more about postseason awards a couple episodes, but Aaron Rodgers had a pretty solid season. 17 games played, 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks, and then he added on 94 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. It's not the MVP numbers we've seen from him the last 2 years, but he did lose Devontae Adams, who was his number one receiver. He did end up signing a long-term deal. I think Aaron Rodgers comes back and plays football. I think he is going to ultimately stay in Green Bay, but I would not be surprised if the Tennessee Titans potentially make some sort of bundle together to go get Aaron Rodgers. Tennessee is going to be in a tough spot. They're going to have to give up, obviously, a really large amount of draft capital and or players, potentially. Not sure what that package would look like. But I think if Aaron Rodgers is going to play anywhere other than Green Bay, I would pick Tennessee personally. But my ultimate pick, I think he's going to stay in Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to shift their focus more towards what he wants when they if they were to restructure his contract, and that's going to open up some more avenues to get better players into Green Bay. And they had a chance to make the playoffs this year. They just had to beat the Lions the last week, and they got on a big heater towards the end of the season. And I think Aaron Rodgers would be silly, kind of in the same way as Tom Brady. I don't think either of those all-time greats are going to go out like that. So, yeah, that is my predictions for the QB carousel of the 2023 offseason. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure stay tapped in with us. We got more stuff coming. Obviously, we've got the Super Bowl coming up. Me and Cade is the other half of the show, going to be getting a not postseason, but our sort of NFL awards ceremony, so to say, for this season. I'm really excited for that video. Going to have some special stuff lined up for that. Obviously, we're really excited with everything that's going on. We had one of our best months on the pod just in terms of viewership, everything like that. Did our biggest video to date, Grant Page interview, and then our most viewed video, the coaching tier list. So we just want to say thank you guys so much for all your support. Let us know in the comments also who you guys think are going to win the games this weekend. Me personally, I'm rolling with the Chiefs and the 49ers. I think it's going to be a rematch of the Super Bowl from a couple years ago. With the Jags being out, I'm just excited to watch a good weekend of football. I hope you guys are too. This has been episode 28 of the Journeyman Sports Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you all next time.